Ooh, that nice new scale. I like it, like it, like it. That's going to be the hardest part of the scale. It's pretty easy to move around. It's kind of like a dolly, maybe moving a washing machine around. Hey, welcome back to the channel. We are going to put together a Frontier OS18 sawmill. This is a very, very new sawmill, and we may actually be the first people to put it together on YouTube. You guys come on. All right, in typical man fashion, I am going to just start digging through these boxes and setting them on the trailer. Now, what we are going to do, just for simplicity purposes, we're going to build this sawmill on the trailer and then take the tractor, pick it up, carry it back in the woods. I'm not exactly sure how heavy this is. It's supposed to be pretty modular, so we'll learn together. Now the shipping container, it looked like it went through some roughness. I believe this is the blades, and they're pretty flexible, so I don't think there's any damage. Just the only thing I would say that looked like there was some damage, except when we picked it up with the forks, we didn't notice it when we offloaded from the truck, but a portion of the rails had pushed through the bottom. Doesn't look like any damage, but we'll see there in a minute. So make sure that these are the blades. Yeah, so these blades are, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't know if you can see in there or not. It's just the way they shipped, but the box was all bent over, but there's nothing wrong with them. Now these, I believe, are saber-tooth 10-degree blades. They look the same thickness as the OS23, but just obviously not as long. We won't need these for quite a while. So these are the ramps where you can actually use the winch to pull the log up onto the deck, so you don't have to have a tractor. And where we're going to put this small sawmill, it's going to be back in the woods a good ways by our cabin. We guys don't know we're building a cabin, so this thing is going to get some serious use. Gizmo, you were getting your shot, your video shot there, and Daddy scared you with the plastic, wasn't he? I was making my debut. We're gonna change his name. He's always around the sawmill, so his name is Gizmo, if you guys are not watching the channel, but I think we're gonna call him Gizmo Frontier. He got a middle name, Frontier. That dude is always around the sawmill. We do have Frontier and Mouse. So if you're new to the channel, we have got a Frontier OS23, and there's a little mouse that sometimes will get into where the blade goes around and builds a little home there if we don't keep the door open all the time. So we call him Frontier the Mouse. Loading shipment around kit. So apparently, yeah, there must be 2 of these. Leveling legs. Ooh. So it looks very similar to how the OS23 was shipped into us. I think it's going to be one of those deals where once you put this together, you're going to be very intimate with it. You're going to have a good intimate understanding. Probably be using this somewhere. Metal's expensive. So this is the box here that has the cross bunks and the carriage. It says cross bunks, carriage, retainer bracket number 2. This busted out the bottom of the box, and in shipping, you can see it took a little bit of, it's just the edge of paint. It's nothing major, but just something to be noted. I believe this is going to be the star of the show, which is the actual cutting head itself. So we got everything out of the box. Everything's cleaned up. We can find it. This is the head unit, obviously. It's a good looking head unit. Let me see if I can pull this open. It's very reminiscent of the OS23. I do like these covers here. These are, I like that. It also has these adjustable cleaners that you can keep your belts clean. That's something new. They look like they're brass. We've got everything out of the box and on the table. I've yet to find the instructions other than the owner's manual for the engine. So I'm down to these 2 boxes here. This is hardware box and then OS18 WL kit. So hopefully it's in one of these, or we didn't get instructions. So there's basically all the hardware with the bolts and nuts. No instructions on that one. And this is the automatic blade cooler valve. It turns the water on and off to the blade as you squeeze the trigger. Make sure I'm not overlooking the instructions. I probably am. I probably look right at them, but I don't see any instructions. Here's the post. Nothing, no instructions in there. I would have thought it would have been with the box, but it may have come off in shipping or something. Hey, welcome back to day 2 of putting this together. Now, I just tell the truth. There is a possibility that in my haste to unbox this, that I possibly burnt the owner's manual up with the trash. I'm not saying that's the case. It's probably the most likely case because anyway, so I reached out to Frontier and they sent me a manual on PDF, and I had it printed off. I need to put this in like a binder, but today I got it in PDF, so I'm not really that worried about it. I'm going to start putting it together today. So hey, note to when you get your sawmill, don't get too excited. Make sure you find the paperwork and set it to the side, and don't get it mixed up with the cardboard and stuff that you're burning. Just saying. We're going to build a 530 square foot cabin, and it's going to have a little small deck at one end and then a large deck at the front. So having said all that, the reason that we're building got this other sawmill is because we're going to put this over by the cabin. It's going to have a lot of wood features on it, but we're going to use our sawmill at that location to help build it. You know, we're going to like all the exterior stuff. We're going to maybe even do some board and batten on the outside in certain places. So it's going to be a combination of tin walls with some featured like wood features. So yeah, and we want that sawmill to be close to the cabin. So anyway, so one thing I can say, just in here glancing over this manual, the manual is way better than, you know, a lot of things we get nowadays to come in, the manuals are kind of hit or miss. This is all the information you need to run the sawmill from putting it together, and then once you get towards the back of the book, it talks about how to actually run a sawmill. You know, how to untangle a blade. You know, when you get a blade, they're all bent together. How to separate them, how to fold them, how the logs go on. I mean, this is a great starting point. So kudos to Frontier for really putting a lot of effort into their manuals. All right, so now first thing we're going to do is start with the bunks. Okay, so right now we're going to be putting together the cross bunk brackets onto the cross bunks. These are the cross bunks. Now we've already put some of these together. These are the little brackets, and according to the direction, it's these little things that, you know, if you don't pay attention to, that it could, as you're assembling it, it could cause problems. The bolt heads go through a specific way. I'm not sure that it would matter, but it just might matter. So another thing it says in the directions at this point is to make sure that you don't tighten these brackets up. These will be tightened up later. As you align the sawmill, these will all be I'm doing a terrible job of demonstrating this, but anyway, we'll get it done. Finger's not very long. Let's see. This is how they go together. And there are some additional holes here. It did make a note to be sure that you didn't put the hole or the bolt through the wrong hole. All of the hardware to this point is, I mean, it's spot on, good quality hardware. The bolts are not burred. They don't have, you know, they screw on pretty easy. Some things I put together in the past from different manufacturers, you know, they'll use the cheapest hardware that they can find, and sometimes the threads are kind of burred up, which makes it not as much fun to assemble. Right now, everything's just going through pretty much as you would expect it to. We've got our 5 cross members set up with the brackets on them. Let's move on to the next section. So we've got our bunks put together, and we left these brackets loose. And notice this little piece right here, this little, I don't know what we call this, but anyway, notice where this is at. I've got all of them on the same side. It's really easy to put these together and have them rotated around. So we're just going to take the L part of the bracket will go, or the track will go down, and these parts will go up when you're assembling. Now, I'm not sure exactly what's up or down just yet, but it seems to be pretty important. This is like this.
I think that's up.
I'm pretty sure.
That's where the roller goes on, rolls on.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is up. And this is where the logs are going to sit. It's so new, I've not seen any videos on this. So, according to the little directions, the bolts go from the outside in, and the nuts go in. We were talking about this earlier. I don't know that these brackets, it matters which way the bolts go on the cross members, but I can tell you one thing, you're not putting an impact on this, because with these bolts through, there's no way to put a socket on, so you're going to have to do 2 wrenches on these. So we got the main part together, and the pictures are very good, and I just absolutely skipped over the section where you put the sawmill head stop. So there's 2 stops on either side. This was the one that has the locking mechanism, and so we'll go back and just a couple of bolts. We haven't tightened anything down. Too easy to correct. Very similar to the OS23 in the concept. Yeah, definitely very, very similar. These go on the outside. I will say the fact that I have put the OS23 together, it gives me a better, a better understanding of this one. However, I do think the instructions on this one are really good. And I'm pretty sure that the OS23's instructions have improved because I've had the OS23 for several years now. Almost, yeah, that's pretty much perfect. So this is a neat little thing where you put two long screws together and it pulls the tracks together on these machine surfaces. So this goes on the inside like such.
Piece again.
Huh?
Show me that piece again.
It's got flat surfaces and the bolt will go through this, and there'll be one on this side, and it'll actually pull the tracks together. Can't lift the log up, it'll be there. So we've got a string pulled, and this string is pulled. You want to put it on you want to wrap it to the inside so that it's lined up directly down the track. And it goes all the way to each end, and you see here there's a little bit of down pull. You're going to take a nut and put right here, and then you come to the other end and do the same thing. And you're going to center the string right over the center of the track, and that'll let you look down the track and see if your track's straight left to right. And then also just a little bit of movement. Ooh, that's so close. That is about perfect. So when you tighten this side, it pulls it together like this, and that makes it the whole unit pull over. So this is about as good as it's going to get at this particular juncture. I'm gonna raise this piece up here as high as I can. And yeah, we're talking about, at this point, maybe a 30 seconds. So I'm pretty sure we can do the same thing on this end. The two pieces that clamp together are still loose. And yes, I can pick up quite a bit on this end. So I'll tighten the two pieces that clamp together. That's going to hold it in its upward position. Now we'll take our nut. Oh yeah, look at there. Barely even touches the string. Again, that's going to be good enough for a sawmill. So now we're going to make sure each one of these bunks, now if you'll notice, this bunk has a little twist to it. We want to make sure that the bunk is setting straight up and down before we tighten those. Barely feel it. Kind of boogered a little bit. I just read in the notes where it says the bolts are always in the same direction as the ones that are already pre-mounted, so these roller bolts. So I got it right. All right, I just stuck these two bolts here, and I missed it. There's 4 bolts that are just a little bit longer in that kit, and they are separately wrapped. That's the ones that go through here. So make sure that you do that. That makes all the difference in them being long enough for the nut and the washer to go on the other side. right, welcome back to day 3. This is not taking 3 days. We've only had, I don't know, a few hours to work here and there. So I would say at this point of having the head probably a third of the way assembled and the tracks completely assembled, we're probably 4 hours into this job for real. We're shuffling things and making things work. But I wanted to point out something on this particular piece. When you put this piece on, it's intuitive to go ahead and put the bolts here on the right side, and the directions say to put the bolts on the left side. But the reason you don't put the bolts on the right side right now is at a later step you're going to install this winch brake drum thing, and that's where it keeps the head, as you wind the head up and down, that's where the brake drum sits on it. And the only reason I know that so well is because the last sawmill I put together, the OS23, I didn't follow the directions, and I went ahead and put all this together, tightened it all up, and guess what? I had to take it all apart again. So learn from my mistakes, and I'm learning from my mistakes. It's just something that could be really easily overlooked. So this unit comes with a set of wheels that you can dolly the head around if you're going to put it in your garage. Like you can take this off and then roll it around like a dolly and roll it up into your garage. So it's got this handle that goes across the back. And the next thing we're gonna do is put this is the winch cable shaft, and that's how it picks the head up and down. Nice heavy piece of metal. I don't think these will go through. Yep, they will. So they'll just go right through like such. Deals here cup the bearings like such. So one will go on the inside of the wall, and then one will go on the outside of the wall, and they'll be like this. And you want to make sure that the little Allen screws are facing inwards on both of them. So this is using the flange bearing, and it's got little carriage bolts. That's the reason there's no washers on it on the outside. It's got a carriage head, it's got a square head. So on the inside there will be a washer and a nut. These are locking nuts. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where these top 2 bolts, you don't put them in. This is where the brake drum for the winch head works. It mounts up, so you're going to the perfect number of bolts and washers out of that little package. I'm not going to just like hammer down tight on these. We're just going to make them, we're going to pull them up snug. I guess it'll be the same. So this is the brake drum that holds your head into place. It makes it so easy, so you can raise the head up, and wherever you let go, that's where it stops. There's enough friction on this that it keeps it from falling, but it's also easy enough to unwind and lower the head down pretty easy. So you take your cable that it comes with, and there's a little slot. You just push that cable through, the cable stop. And what I'm going to do here is just snug down these Allen head screws to kind of hold this in place. I'm not going to lock it down just yet because we may have to move it in and out just a little bit. Then you're going to wrap your cable around the drum until you get a little bit of cable left. And what you may have to do is unwind the head so this falls down further. And there's another little slot that this slides up in there. I don't know if you can see it on camera. Ooh, so close. Let's take it up just a little bit more. So we'll take that little lock nut off the top and back this little thing up there. That lets it go down a lot further. So again, we're going to put that little cable in and wrap it around the drum. I think it goes around the drum twice. Don't overlap it. Make sure that it goes beside it each time. That's the trick. I think I remember that, having that issue with the, with my OS23, I kept overlapping these. So once that you have the cable wrapped and locked in both ends, and this is how you set the tension amount that you want for to slow the head up and down. So you can see right now, like I can push this forward, but as soon as I try to go reverse, it's got a little bit of pressure on it. So if I grab a hold of it really hard and crank it, you can see the pressure increase. Now if I loosen this up, it becomes easy to turn. So just a little bit of pressure. It's got a little spring. You always want to oil this, daily. I've oiled this almost every day that I've used on Sawmill, and to this day I've never lost one of these cables. And the OS23 is 3 years old. Went up and down a lot. Also, I don't worry about backing off the pressure on this too much, but I always back off the pressure on the one that holds the head up. So there's this little nut here on the top. This is not to tighten it. It's just a nylon stop nut. And basically what you're going to do is you're just going to bring the nylon stop nut to its flush with the top of the bolt. And what that'll do is keep the little red knob from ever vibrating off. We've got the shaft is locked into place. On the far end, you put the shaft flush, and that gives you some room over here to work. And then once you pull the shaft all the way over, and then you tighten in your inner flange Allen keys, these little flange on the inside there's Allen keys there. And that keeps the shaft from moving left and right. Now I've got mine, there's virtually no play left and right on this. And this is not a precision thing, but it's just something I did. Now what I'm going to do is get my Allen screws loosened back up, just so this thing will move. And when I rotate this, I kind of want it to stay in the center of the drum. So right now, mine is all the way in and it's centered. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. There's two flat spots. There's a flat spot here, and then there's a flat spot further up. They're both in a line with each other. You need to make sure that one of the Allen screws is on the flat spot. And you can, as you tighten it up, you're just going to wiggle it back and forth. You'll feel it flatten out. And I'm going to crank it down. This is something to this point on the OS23 I've never had to fix or adjust ever. Now, I'm sure you can break it, but to this point I've had no issues with it. Last part of this is you're going to put the little cover on. It's got this portion right here has threads in it. So you're just going to put the washer on the bolt, and then oh my goodness, this should not be that hard, but I hadn't had that much coffee today. There it goes. The second one, these are got oblong holes so you can adjust these up and down. I got mine all the way down. Feel pretty good about that. Crescent wrench is always the right wrench. All right, so this is kind of out of order, but I did the OS23. I found it to be helpful. Once I've got this in there, I got a little bit of pressure on this cable, and even when I back it all the way down, it's still got a little pressure. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the handle on now, and then you got the flat spots where the Allen screw goes. Don't forget that there's a little flat spot. One of the Allen screws has to go in the flat spot. But what this will do is by having the handle on it makes it a little bit easier to manipulate the cable. And we have our, having it set up here in the trailer, makes it really good as far as a place to work. I would definitely recommend working somewhere at waist height. It just makes it so much easier to work. All right, this is the cable kit. So we're pretty much down to finishing the cable, plugging in the wiring, and then putting the scale on. And we're getting really close. So I think we're going to cut our first log today. So if you're looking for this hose, turns out this is like a medical hose. It's a rubber flexible hose, and I needed some for my OS23. It turns out this is like a medical tube. So, multiple purpose. I do remember this. Also be careful when you're taking this apart because it will spring loose and pop you in the head. All right, let's see if I can figure out how to do the cables again. It's been a couple days since I've done the cables. So each one of these cables are the exact same, and this loop ends up on the front where these little eyelets are. So the best way to, in my opinion, to do this is start with the cable here on the bottom and see if the loop will run through. And then you're going to go up to the cable on the top. And then run back down to the eyelet. That's the way we'll start. We're going to take out this Carter key. You don't want to twist your cables. You want to keep your cables twist free as possible. Alright, so we got that one. And then I'm going to straighten this Carter key out that I mangled. Alright, that should be a little easier to go back. That should be a little easier to go back home. There we go. So the directions show you to do a lot of different things. You take the nut off, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's definitely not wrong. It's just easier to do it like this. This is your adjuster, so the further you go in, the tighter this side is, so you can raise and lower the head of the sawmill from side to side by adjusting this knob. And then there's also some adjustment in the pulleys at the bottom. So all we want to do right now is get the cable in. I'm taking the nut here, and I'm just passing the first couple of threads. You can see the first couple of threads are passed. And I'm taking the jam nut from the back and just finger tighten it. So now we got it like that. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side by, let's see if I can squeeze that too a little bit more. That'd be a little easier to get through these pulleys. Up to the top. Right down to the infamous Carter key. See if I can not mangle this one. Push the pin through. This one, I'm right-handed, so this one's a little bit easier to work on. Alright. Again, we're going to take this cable, come up, and these are aimed towards the end. You want them aimed in. And we'll take that jam nut and we'll tighten it up. So all we're going to do is just rotate this around. It should wind the cables up. We'll make sure that the cables are not wrapping over each other. This is the first time that these are doing this. You're also, like right here, this cable pulled up under the pulley. Make sure that they're in the pulleys. That's a big, it's important thing. All of them are in the pulleys. All right, and we're just going to keep gradually winding this up. Now you see it starting to pull some tension. Now this is holding the weight of that head up right now because I got a little bit of brake on it. So I'm going to back this brake off. Keep my hand here. We'll back it off till it falls down on its own, or unwind on it. Oh, you can see it. There it went. Oh. So now it's really easy. And that's how you adjust the tension. You want to be able to rotate it over. You don't need it extra tight. You just need it tight enough that it doesn't fall. And when the engine's running, it's vibrating, so it's going to be a little bit more tension required than when you were just, you know, when you was just like this, when it's not running. But you don't want it to be hard. You got to oil it still too, so we're not gonna keep going too much. We're gonna go ahead and drop the weight of that back down. Like when you get through at the end of the day, you always want to take the pressure off of this. Again, I've not lost any cables yet. I keep these oiled, and then I also, at the end of every day, I take all the pressure off of them. They're stainless steel aircraft cables, so they should last a long time. It don't need washers on the back side because it's solid steel. Not to have so much flex. Can still have some movement. So if this was going to be up high, say I put it on a platform, I believe I could take this off and rotate it around and have it down like this, like we do on the other. So this is flexible. So if you are going to be up or down, right now we're going to be running it on the ground, so I don't see that that's going to be an issue. We would want it up higher like this, so we're not bent over. This is a lot heavier built like that. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and put it to the top. This is something we can come back and adjust. The cable for the throttle is wrapped around, zip tied. It's going to come up and go right here. This is a little lock nut we're going to have to work on. All right, so we're going to take this little screw out here, and this holds the throttle cable to the handle, so when you pull the handle, it throttles the engine up and down. We're not going to tighten this back up because we're going to put the auto water system in it. Take that nut off the front, slide the cable through that little hole, and we put this nut back on. We're just going to leave it right there because we're not, let's back the jam nut off from the back side. We have some flexibility. So we're going to go ahead and put this screw back through, and the eyelet on the end of the throttle cable, go ahead and push it back down. Now we're not going to tighten this up dramatically right now. Once we get the engine running, we'll adjust the throttle so it's full throttle. And then also there's another cable right now that's going to come right here, which is the auto on and off water, or the coolant, for the coolant water that comes on the blade. That'll go right there. You can see the throttle working. All right, so this is the stop, the emergency stop switch. And what we're going to do, there's two screws here that hold the wires in place, and there's this center screw that holds the safety switch to the actual safety switch to the button. You can see the button click down. So you push the button down, and then you turn it when you want it to release. So as long as that's pushed down, it won't run. You click that and it pops it back out. And this is the actual safety switch, and you can see the little green,
with your finger.
There's a little green nipple sticking off here, and that's what when you push that in, it actually kills the engine. This just goes to the ignition system. So what we're going to do now is, it's got a little push in, turn. As long as these screws are tightened down, it can't do that. So you got to release the pressure off these two little screws, so it locks into place. So set it on, twist. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and put this through the hole. All right, I was able to twist it on into place. Now we're going to take the two little screws and push or tighten them up. I don't know if you can see this or not without, you probably can see it over here on this side. All right, now it's ready to mount the switch part. All right, I've got the little switch screw, the mount screw started. None of this has to be like super tight, but tight enough you don't want it to vibrate off. All right, that's off. Twist it on, off. I like it. All right, so the water tank, you're gonna go ahead and put the washers and bolts on. You're just gonna hang the first couple of threads of the bolt, and you put all three of them on. And the front has got front tier sawmill on it, so you're going to make sure that that's facing you when you do this. So the middle one and then the two back ones. Again, just the first couple of threads. And the reason being is they have these nice little slots up on top where these fall through, and then you just slide it to the side, and then you can tighten them up. So when you're tightening these up, this is a plastic water tank with metal inserts. So it's good quality, but you don't want to just like crank down on these, because you will break the little inserts loose. Just a good snug. It's really starting to look like a sawmill. I'm getting excited now. And that nice new scale. I like it. So where is this? This is the cover, and this would be retaining plates. That would be these. We're not going to put them on yet because that's when we set it on the sawmill. All right, to put the scale on, you're going to take the bottom nut off, which locks it into place, and you're going to back this screw completely out of this bolt, completely out. It's not necessarily easy. One of them has a hole and the other one has a slot. It's coming out, but it's some tight stuff. Hang on. When I had my small 1/2-inch impact, let me see if I can get this big one in here. That'll help. That first little bit there's the hard part. Actually, I think that's going to be the hardest part of the scale. Was putting it on is the scale. This one we just need to lift just a little bit. I got it anyway. Yeah, I think that putting the scale on may be the hardest part of the whole build. So these are the scales. We're going to go ahead and mount these up. The first one. This is the one that we'll measure and mount this, and the red line tells you exactly where the blade is in reference to the log deck. So if you're 1 inch, your blade is 1 inch away from the log deck, then it's 1 inch, this will show 1 inch. However, there's an additional one that mounts this blue one, and you'll be able to adjust this to compensate. Like if you're cutting from the top of a log, you can set this one move it up and down to an even mark, and then you have a reference point. So that's why there's 2 lines. All right, so now we're going to put the permanent gauge on, or level scale, I guess the scale. And these have just got flat face nuts. These are, you're not going to like just crank down tight on these, and we're not going to permanently tighten these down today anyway, because we still have to measure, but I'm just putting it all together. Actually, it doesn't show in the directions to put this on until later. So you see, you can adjust this out where it can tilt in and out. You don't want this to be digging on this scale, because it will cause the scale to actually peel off. I didn't get this right on the OS23 when I put it together the first time, and I had to order a new sticker and redo this. So make sure it doesn't, it doesn't bind. All right, what I'm doing right now is I'm just tightening this down. Just snugging it. We're going to have to move this later on. The next thing you're going to do is place washers over those nuts. And you're going to place your second scale. And place the next set of washers. Once you get those 2 washers on, you have 1 nut that just is a nut. And you're just going to tighten this up just enough that there's some drag. I want it to be able to go up and down like that. And then that will be, this will be the actual nut that pinches it in place and keeps it from coming off. So that's how your scales are set up. This nut here just gives enough tension to keep it from falling off, and that tightens it up. All right, so we're going to take the cover off of this thing. Okay, that makes more sense. It's got little nuts that are locked. They have a nylon lock on them, so this shouldn't be that difficult. Okay, so I just got a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to, those little screws in the back, they're hard to get to with anything. So I'm just going to grab a needle nose, clamp onto them. Really small, so they're not hard to tighten up. And like I said, they're locking, so you don't have to worry about them vibrating back off. We'll just go around and finish the rest of these up. All right, now we're going to put the wheel axles on. There's a big thick portion that goes through the carriage. It takes a 9/16 head bolt. All right, now we're going to put the second one on. It's just the same procedure. The thick side goes towards the carriage. So this will actually clamp this axle in and pull it together so that the axle has penetrated both sides. It's got to be pretty tight. So these are the wheels we're putting on. There are no air in them. They're solid. So I'm going to lift these up, and Tanya is going to slide them on for me. Put the screws on it. Put the screws to it. What's busy today out here? Okay, I think the only thing we have left on the head of the unit is putting the automatic on and off for the coolant water. See if we can find that kit. So if you buy this Sawmill, it would normally come with just the lube tube and that would click on right here at the tank and go around and go through the sawmill. You'll bend this so that it's aiming towards the blade. But in this particular case, we are going to put on the auto lube system, and that's where when you push the handle, it turns the valve on to open the water, so you're not just keeping water draining all the time. If you don't do that every time, you'll have to turn the valve on and off, on and off, on and off. So that's a neat feature. You can just set the valve to how much flow you want out, and then when you pull the handle here, it will turn the water on. You don't have to do anything. So this is basically just a latch that when you pull this back, it releases the water, and when you have pressure on it, it collapses the tube and doesn't let the water come through. So when you pull the handle, it opens the tube up. It's ridiculous simple, but it just works. Let's go ahead and tighten these down right here. I think that's in good shape. So this is adjustable, and it has 2 slots here, so you can adjust it in and out so you don't you have to be able to pull the cable back far enough, or the valve back far enough to let the water flow. So that's how that works. So here's the cable that does the water. Again, when you're taking these cables apart, be careful because they will spring and slap you in the face. And this is the reason I said don't tighten this little screw up here. Take the nut off completely, put that spring in there. Yeah, that was a lot easier. This is how you adjust that valve as well. You have 2 adjustments. You can adjust it on this end, or you can adjust it on this end. So there's both the adjustments in both ways. I'm going to put it in the center and go ahead and use the jam nut to lock it into place. This is all plastic, so it doesn't need to be very tight. Just tight enough. You see the little, I don't remember why. I think it's just an additional hose that comes with it. Because they're both the same length, yeah. So it doesn't matter. It just comes with an additional hose. What you do is run that hose up, through, give yourself enough room to give yourself a little extra loop. And then you can push this on. All right, this will, what I ended up doing last time was I took a little piece of zip tie and put just a zip tie around it, just tight enough that it held onto it, but it wouldn't let it fall through because it fell through and kept getting straight like this. And it seemed like it was pulling tighter and tighter as I went up and down with the sawmill. Probably didn't matter, but anyway. So now we got to route this around. It's going to go through this little hole right here. There's a grommet. All right, there's a grommet up under here. All right, looks good. Run the hose through. And this will go down to the cutting head through this little hole right here. There's a little set screw right here. Now you don't want to just crank down on it. This is an aluminum tube, and if you just crank down, you'll crush it, and then it won't let any fluid through. That's it. All right, we won't bend the tube on the front until we put our first blade on, because we want to bend it so that it's tracking. Right now, I believe this is going to work fine, so I am going to go ahead and button this up, and I feel pretty good about it, that it's going to work. But if there's a possibility that I might have to come back and adjust this, And if that's the case, it's not, but it's only 2 bolts to open this back up. We'll address these hoses in a little bit at a later time. There's got to be enough room that they go up and down, but you don't want this to get into the way of the logs. It works. Been doing it for 3 years, so I know it works. It's good. It's a good system. So we can now go ahead and tighten this little nut up. And this is a nylon locking nut, so you don't have to go. I just pull it up until it's snug. Right there. So these are the last 2 parts for the cutting head. These are the clamps that hold it down to the rail, so if you're transporting it, or if you run into it, it doesn't fall off the tracks very easily. And this goes in front of your winch. This is a new feature that it wasn't on the OS23, but it keeps the winch covered from the front side. I guess, I can see that if little kids get out there and get their fingers in it. So this is just a nice little winch cover that'll go onto the bottom like that. But we don't want to put it on just yet until we start doing our adjustments. So let me show you a really cool feature that I think a lot of people will use. I don't know that we will because we are in the woods, but you can take, this thing's pretty mobile. And especially like if you have it at your house and you want to put it in your garage, you can roll it around. I found out that you need to have the head down all the way first, but I was struggling. This is not that easy, and then I realized that I had the head lifted all the way to the top. So the way it is right now, it's pretty easy to move around. It's kind of like a dolly, maybe moving a washing machine around, if that. And then what you would do is, if you left your track outside, you would have to remove your stops, but you would just drive up to it, pull the front up. See if I can demonstrate this. So you would just drive up to it, take the front wheels and set them on the track, or the track guides, and then you would lower it on the track guide, and then you would just pick it up and roll forward until your back's on, and then you would just only have to replace your stops. You have to take your stops on and off. I don't see any other way of doing it, but the fact that just by removing 4 bolts you could take this off and roll it into your garage, I think that's a win. All right, we're going to wrap this video up, but don't leave just yet. Let me tell you what's coming. We're going to take the track, put the leveling legs on it, set it up in the woods on some maybe 6x6s. We're going to take the tractor, pick this head up, set it on the tracks, and then we will do our final leveling of the whole system. So if you're interested in really setting this up and fine tuning it, you just hang tuned to the next video.